As Harry's conduct worsened, Charles and his staff were faced with an escalating damage control problem. More bad behaviour meant more bad publicity and more criticism. In a fit of temper, Harry hit a photographer outside a London nightclub. He was sent away to Argentina. He was to spend several weeks working on the polo ranch of the Tomlinson family. Out there, he secretly met up with his latest girlfriend, Chelsea Davy. But once again, trouble found Harry. He had to come home amid stories of partying in local clubs and kidnap threats to his safety.
Harry was under scrutiny for drinking, binge drinking, going out late at night. I mean, those reports were strongly denied by the palace, and actually I think the truth of what happened in Argentina was that he kept himself to himself and Chelsea Davy, who of course was the secret flame that he'd been nurturing for the past 8 months and had secretly got over in Argentina without anyone foiling it.
One of the country's most elite nightclubs has the unusual setting of Highgrove, Prince Charles's country home. Members of William and Harry's young circle of friends gather here, especially when Charles is away. This is the location of Club H.
The Club H is actually a physical place. It was the cellars underneath Highgrove that Charles had converted into a playroom for the boys a few years ago, which as they got older, they decided to turn more into a nightclub. So they had a music system put in, there's a bar down there, and it became a regular fixture for them on a Saturday night. They would bring their friends around there, they would party there, and all sorts of nefarious things went on there. The Prince of Wales did turn a blind eye to it, except when the music was too loud, and that's about the only time he really took much interest in what was going on. And when he wasn't there, I think the boys were able to do pretty much what they like, inviting who they like round there.
Church Farm, West Littleton in Wiltshire, is the country home of Princess Anne's former boyfriend, Richard Meade. An Olympic gold medalist, Meade has stayed in favour as part of the Royal Hunting, Shooting and Fishing Circle. William and Harry were invited to Meade's son Harry's 22nd birthday party. The princes chose their colonials and natives themed costumes from a local fancy dress shop. William picked a leopard skin outfit, Harry an Afrika Korps Nazi uniform complete with a swastika. One of the 400 party guests took a sneak picture of Harry and sold it to the press. Harry was widely condemned for his insensitivity. William became embroiled in the row.
William was in the shop with him at the time, apparently, when he chose this costume, and it also didn't occur to William to say, Harry, that's perhaps not in the best taste. Why don't you go for a different colonial outfit?
Why would William, who is a mature young man, have allowed Harry to dress in that German officer's uniform? It was a naive thing to do, and William could have said, oh, hang on a bit, think about this. He simply didn't think. I think there is a thoughtlessness about many of his actions. He doesn't seem to appreciate yet that what he does actually matters. If it had been one of his friends who dressed up in a German uniform, it wouldn't have mattered at all. But it's because it's Prince Harry, it's because he's the third in line to the throne, he has to be responsible, and at the moment he isn't.
Harry's friends came under press criticism for their wealthy backgrounds, lack of purpose and loutish conduct. A guest at the Meade party revealed that Guy Pelly, dressed as the Queen in a blue dress, grey wig and crown, told a risque joke about her.
When Harry was at this party and larking around and just about to laugh at Guy Pelly's alleged joke about the Queen, it was William that shot him the very fiery glance to say, watch it.
Harry's Nazi gaffe, made near the 60th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, prompted calls for a televised apology, but Charles felt that a two-line statement issued by his office was enough.
Harry would have been well advised to have made a much more public, heartfelt apology for his gaffe in wearing a Nazi uniform. It wasn't a press-driven story. There was genuine outrage around the world at what he did. It was a big mistake, and I think he could have come out and said something publicly, or perhaps Prince Charles could have done.
Charles remained on holiday at Birkhall in Scotland, planning his marriage to Camilla. Had Harry's lack of support from Charles been part of his problems?
I think he could have had a lot more guidance, especially from his father. Harry's on a gap year at the moment, and a very unstructured gap year. You would expect that there would be a father figure there to help him plan the next few months of this year off. And he seems to have spent so much of it on his own, and I think that's got to be a major cause for him going off the rails, because he hasn't had the guidance there.
Harry had to atone for his offence. He was ordered to spend time swilling out the pigs on one of his father's farms. As a child, Harry showed two sides. The shepherd with the angelic face was also a little rascal who poked out his tongue. Holiday photo calls tested his patience. He had to behave at kindergarten, but palace balcony appearances were an excuse for showing off. Harry showed an early interest in sport and enjoyed annual family skiing holidays. He was taken to polo matches. He learned to swim in warm Spanish waters. He got an early taste of army life inside a tank in Germany. There were holidays in exotic locations. William and Harry went to Nevis Island in the Caribbean. They were fascinated by the local wildlife, 9-inch long toads.
There must have been 20 or 30 of these giant toads sitting in this flower bed. So systematically, Harry had collected these toads and put them in a sort of basket, and they're all trying to jump out of this box. And then with William, they eventually lined up these toads by the swimming pool. And we had what was then famously known as the Nevis Toad Derby.
Official tours meant partings from their parents and joyful reunions, often aboard the Royal Yacht Britannia. Once, when Diana had greeted William first, Harry kicked him in resentment. The boys got on well together, but there was an undercurrent of sibling rivalry.
When Harry was younger, he was jealous of William because he wanted his mother all to himself. I mean, if they were in a room together, Harry would sit almost on top of Diana in his anxiety to be close to her. And he didn't want William anywhere near her. He said, "Mummy, I want you all to myself."
Harry was a typical mummy's boy, clingy and in need of reassurance. Posed pictures on summer holidays in Mallorca hid a dark secret. Despite appearances, his parents' marriage was disintegrating. Diana would soon take her sons on trips away from Charles. With a welcoming hug, she would be the parent to greet them at school. Caribbean holidays gave Diana the chance to make Harry feel special. These boyhood moments must be among his most treasured memories of her. He was still a child when she died.
He was a terribly affectionate little boy, always wrapped around his mother, sneaking into her bed early in the morning for a cuddle, and I think that's what he desperately, desperately needs, and I hope now that he's found it.
She worried because he was the number two, that he would be the one who would be overlooked. Everything would come to William. William was the one they were grooming for the future. And it was that one of the reasons why Diana used to say to me and others that she wanted to involve Harry in William's life, and it carries on to this day. William rarely does photo calls on his own. Harry is always drawn into those because she didn't want him to be constantly overlooked. Oh, he's the spare, he doesn't count. She wanted him to count, and Prince Charles has taken that on board.
That policy of making Harry feel important sometimes upset William. He began to see Harry as a rival, especially on skis.
There was a lot of jealousy. I think at one stage William stomped off in a tantrum because he wasn't feeling well. He had flu, and there was Harry doing really well on his skis, and William kept falling over, so he just stomped off.
Harry had a natural affinity with sport.
The sporting star of the family is definitely Harry, and it always has been. And that used to really irritate William, because he would see his younger brother better on the skis than he was. And Harry was fearless. You see, Harry is fearless.